Welcome everyone to Always Receiving Nur monthly teleconferences, and we are delighted to have the topic of asking meaningful questions for today. In November teleconference, we will be discussing asking meaningful questions, the Quranic guidance. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So today, inshallah, we are intending an interactive session as usual. I have Dr. Yamina with us here, and together we'll be going over this topic of asking questions, asking meaningful questions. And actually, we want to start with asking you a question. Why is it important to ask meaningful questions? Why is it important to ask right questions or good questions? Let's start from there. Is there anybody who wants to share?
Basically, Assalamu alaikum everyone, first of all. The Prophet ﷺ said that, asking a meaningful question is half the knowledge. So that is from the subjective point of view, but I think the whole Quran is most of the things are questions and answers, and most of the times the mushrik and the non-believers, they ask the questions and we got the benefit. So, and then also there's the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that asking too many questions can cause, destruction too. So I think there should be a balance, and the balance is to get the, the quality that needs, not the quantity, but the best questions to increase the knowledge, inshallah. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us knowledge, and we all get the knowledge directly from him. So, inshallah.
Thank you.
I think it is, so it's to know the right question. For anyone who is at the university, and I think many of us are, you feel that once you know the question, the answer will be given. That's what science is about. But this, so that's part one, I would say. So that's true for if you want to learn cooking, if you want to learn mathematics, but this how to ask meaningful questions goes beyond that. So the right question, to have the right question, is really half of the answer. That's something that you can experience in your daily life. But the right question, that's what we are talking about today, right?
Thank you very much for that comment as well, because definitely asking questions, the right questions, is half of the answer, or even really what gets us to the answer in everything, even cooking, as you're saying, and it's also essentially extremely important for our lives. And why? Because as Andre just said, how we ask the question, what kind of questions we ask, if we are asking the right questions or not, that makes the immense difference to whether we get to an answer or not. And Sister Esma said the Quran is filled with questioning, and there are lots of questions throughout the Quran. Quran itself, as we will shortly discuss in more detail, is filled with it's an invitation actually to ask questions. Now, asking questions, therefore, is extremely important because they shape what answers we have access to. And if we want to ask the right questions, and this is in the broadest sense, the questions that matter, the questions that give meaning to our lives and orient ourselves in the world, these very important questions need to be asked, and they need to be asked in the right way. So in order to ask the questions the right way, we need to be aware of our assumptions, what is informing our questions. There is a story of a man coming across. I mean, it's just an imaginary story, but it's a good story. That he comes across a laptop, and this person is looking for a tray to serve food. And so he's looking around and he sees this laptop, and because he's the question that's occupying him is the question of how can I find something flat to serve food on. And when he sees the laptop, that's the question he's asking, and he thinks he found it. Yeah, here is a flat surface. And if this person never gets to ask the right questions, or is never guided to ask questions that would take him to the actual function of that laptop, that person may be deprived of the immense opportunities that would come from turning on that laptop, because he never asks the question, how can I turn this on? What can I do with this? He doesn't ask that question in the right way. So he's not ever, even if he's using empirical method, he's saying, well, let me test if this laptop is flat or not. He can ask those questions, but those are not the right questions. So even something that like testing out or experimenting is useless if we don't start with right questions. So in itself, that empirical method that's so glorified in science and in other aspects of life is really useless if our basic assumptions are not guided, are not grounded. So
sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
When we said useless, it means that's not what it is useful for. It is not useful to guide us to articulating the questions. Once we know the questions, it may be useful to test them when we're testing the answers.
Yeah, it's like looking for a cure for a disease. Like there are certain diseases that people don't ask the question whether it can be healed, because for instance, just as an example, in the mainstream medicine, there is no cure for it. So some people say, okay, they said there's no cure for it, so we're not going to look for a cure. But the other people, they say, well, maybe can there be a cure outside of mainstream medicine? And maybe they find an herbalist or some other kind of medicine, and they can actually test it. If the herbalist says, well, you don't need to take that chemical, if you try this herb for 2 weeks, you will see the difference, then you can go ahead and try it out, and it may work, it may not work, but at least you have asked that question of whether you can find healing in a different way. But if you never ask that question, then you don't even, like, even if there's a cure, there's no way to even start testing it. So in itself, testing does not get us anywhere, but if we can couple that with right questions, then this incredible opportunity opens up before us that would be closed if we are not asking the right question. And one of the participants, sorry.
Assalamu alaikum. Even in the past times, when students wanted to study Quran, they were called Quran Talebe. They were asking for the knowledge of Quran. So it's even in their language, students, when we say students, it doesn't mean like asking for. But if you're interested about it, it means that you're observing your surrounding, and you don't get the meanings as 100%. So you're asking for it. Then, if you think Quran has an answer, you are talebe.
Yeah, that's a good connection, grammatical connection there. So thank you, Sister Yamina.
Isra and Dr. Yamina, I just wanted to make one more point that I have learned over the years. Here in America, people just say, you know, I mean, where I did my residency, they used to say that, you know, you should, I mean, all questions are good except the ones which are not asked. So they encourage you to ask whatever questions you ask. But in Islam, I think the concept is totally different. I mean, there are some areas in which the Prophet ﷺ told us not to go in, like in, you know, the transcendental kind of questions about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, and then that's how the Quran guides us, you know, to ask the right questions. And it's the most important thing, practical point of view. From that point of view, I think it's important that you should not be wasting other people's time, because when you're asking questions, you know, you should ask the most pertinent questions so that everybody benefits. So the intention of the question is also very, very important in my opinion.
Yes, that's true. The intention is very important, and so far we always emphasize the intention is always related to a state of awareness, because unless I am aware and conscious of what I'm doing, I can't intend to ask mindfully. So I think what Isra just mentioned, what I understood is, what she's saying is like, are we aware of what is behind our question? What is guiding our questions? What is inspiring us? The example that she gave, this person who is looking for a tray, and therefore, as soon as he sees the laptop, he thinks it's, oh, this is a good tray. I can use it as a tray. His perception of the laptop is determined by his query before, which is his question. So if the one question would be, what if our object of inquiry is completely alien? What if the guy in the example, the person, has no idea what a laptop is? What if it happened a few centuries ago when there was no laptop or any such thing? Which means that person's previous knowledge is not sufficient to help him in his quest for finding out what that laptop actually is. So can he ever find out that it is more than just a tray? How is it possible to ask a question that will lead us, that will lead that person to understanding his the object of query, the object in his hand, the laptop in this case? How do we know we're not of inquiry, pre-understanding, pre-assumptions, assuming that, oh, this is hard, it's flat? Well, it is not a very good truth. So how do we discern that our interpretation of something conforms to what the thing is? the answer I get, or the answer I think I get, actually in conformity with the reality? What are our criteria?
And it's again brings us back to the qualitative aspect of asking the question. That is, it is not about the number of questions per se that we ask. In that sense, Sister Esma, what they told you, like all questions are good. In a sense, it's true as long as they are framed with appropriate awareness of things around us. So that awareness is the key, and also the attitude with which we ask the questions. Because sometimes we ask questions to get an answer. We genuinely are looking for a solution, and sometimes we're asking a question, but actually it's not a question. We are complaining, or we are trying to demonstrate that there is no solution. Sometimes we say, why all these things always happen to me? Now that's not actually a question. We're actually complaining. I mean, or at least that question can be asked in a complaining way, which won't lead to a genuine searching. Or the same question could be asked like, this thing keeps happening to me. Why is this happening to me? Could there be wisdom behind it? There must be some wisdom behind it. What is it? The same question asked with openness and genuine search for a solution, versus if that's asked that way, it will lead to truth, and the other one will not. So in the Quran, actually, we will see later, inshallah, we have time. There are all these kind of questions, and sometimes the same question asked, apparently the same question asked by two different individuals, or from two different attitudes. One gets an answer, the other gets a rebuke, because the difference is in the attitude. What is my awareness? What is my assumption as I'm approaching to this question? And as what Dr. Yamina said, if we come back to this question of what if what we're trying to understand is completely alien to us, then how do we know that we're asking the right question? Right? If something is meant to be, let's say, a CD, it's meant to be played, and I have never seen technology in my life, how could I ever even ask the question whether this could make sound? Like, it wouldn't even occur to me. It's completely alien to me. Why would I think if around this would make sounds? I wouldn't even think that music could be in it, or if a movie could be in it. So bringing that to the Quran, Dr. Yamina, would you like to jump in here?
Carry on.
So please feel free to add. I just wanted to connect this to the Quran, that the Quran is enlightening a world that is otherwise alien to us. For instance, we feel a connection to the universe, but we really don't know what it is about. What is its meaning? What is it saying? If it is saying something, life is flowing. We all love life and are attached to life, but we don't quite know why we're here. What are we doing here? What is the meaning of all these things happening constantly? Things are budding, flourishing, and then they are dying away. There is this constant flow. What is this about? Without guidance from its creator, it's strange. It's just alien to us. We are attracted and repulsed by the world. We have all these different potentials, and we don't exactly know why do we have them, if it's going to be just decay at the end. So the Quran's incredible help is to enable us. It gives us cues so that we can ask right questions about our existence and the world we live in.
The other thing, the style of the Prophet ﷺ, sometimes he used to ask questions from a teaching point of view, like, the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam. It's very famous, and the whole religion revolves around it. When Jibreel alayhi salam came and asked the companions, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sorry, what's your, about Islam and Iman, and so that was a teaching point too. So I think that's another style, like Isra just mentioned, that sometimes you know the answer and you're asking a question to share the knowledge, so that could also be a good intention, to share the knowledge. And the question if somebody didn't ask, is most important, and we did not touch on that topic. And if somebody knows the answer and still asks the question, that's a teaching point, I think, So
the Quran encourages us to ask questions that are essential and which we don't ask because we're just living in an unaware state, in ghafla. And by not asking those questions, we're actually blocking ourselves from an incredible level of reality and truth and meaning. So that's why, as a whole, the Quran is an invitation to ask the questions that we do not ask because we are just living in an unaware state. It's like someone you're holding in your hand an incredibly amazing DVD, and you don't know it's a DVD, and somebody's saying, "How about let's try putting this in, and let's try, turning on this machine and see what comes out." And it's it was just a flat disc, and now it's an amazing discourse in it, or a video in it. So it's a huge difference. So similarly, the Quran comes in. We're living in this unaware state. We either don't know how to ask questions, or we're just in this ghafla state that we take things for granted. And the Quran again and again and again invites us to ask these extremely crucial, important, transformative questions. And this, for the sake purposes of today's talk, we will call that as primary questions. Like the Quran insists that we ask these primary or existential questions. I want to give one example out of many. If you have your Quran with you, or if you're on Islamicity.com, you can. Yes.
Before that, I just want to remind ourselves that when we are talking about asking questions related into words, but often they may not even be articulated into words. They could be, as you just said, existential questions. So from that point of view, being hungry, a state of being that is seeking for an answer. The answer is food, or we don't know. We may not know if we had never seen food, like the baby when the baby is just born. The baby is crying and seeking to satisfy that need, and it doesn't know if it's going to be satisfied. The question is, so let's keep in being asked through us. We are made to ask the question and are made to appreciate the answers. That's the way we have access to the answers.
That's
so the questions are not necessarily articulated in words. They could be, they are needs. They are felt. We feel them.
Assalamualaikum. I relate to the existential questions point. That is not necessarily have to be articulated into words. I think that the only way that, I think that a way that a person who has never, seen a CD before and has no idea that it could potentially make sound, could arrive at discovering this is to just ask, what are the possibilities? What are all the possibilities? in that question, you're not asking, does this make sound? Because when the question does this make sound, you already know what you want. You want sound. And you're going to try it out to see if you can get what you want out of it. But in anything, if you just ask, what are all the possibilities here? In that case, you're opening it up to Allah to show you amazing things that you could have never dreamed of and that you would have never expected.
That's seeking help. The Ibrahim alayhi salam, he asks for help when he cannot find the answer. He just surrenders and asks for help. Yeah, that's very, very significant, because as you just mentioned, we often find ourselves in situations that we don't know actually what we is, but we're sure that we need something, and so we seek help. We ask for help, and we are open to any possibility. And in that openness, in that surrender, in that trust, we will be surprised beyond our imagination. That's the beauty of the gift. Mm. So shall we go?
Yeah, and this is, I mean, this is really...
Isra, you were inviting us.
Yeah, but before that, what you have highlighted and other contributions were very helpful for me, because so when we're saying we are asking questions, we're actually made to ask questions, because in a way these are our questions to make sense of our lives, or to find a solution to a particular situation. We are asking questions, but actually these are not our questions. We are made in such a way that we are looking for a solution, and that's extremely important, because if we didn't have that urge, or if we didn't have that almost discomfort without the answer, then we wouldn't be seeking answers. And I'm talking about the answers that matter, the questions that matter here. So I like that emphasis that we are made to ask these questions, because otherwise, asking or not asking, it doesn't make a difference to me. If it were like that, then being a lazy person, I wouldn't even ask the question. Who cares? But there is something in me that wants the answer and is uncomfortable until that answer, a satisfying answer, is found. And that means that I'm wired, if you will. I'm made in such a way to ask these questions about how do I make sense of my life, how do I make sense of the world I live in, and how do I apply those in particular situations where there appears to be a crisis, or there is a particular curiosity that I really want to find out the possibilities of a given situation. And that's really helpful. And baby example was very helpful too. A baby is crying and she doesn't know what is it. I mean, if she had the capacity to talk, if we were to ask the baby, like, what do you want? She wouldn't be able to describe what is it that she needs, but she's in need and she's crying out for a solution. And but that coming in with that surrender to the world, human being does get the answer. And so how we ask the questions, and then the understanding that all these questions fit in a bigger frame of existence that whoever made us wants us to discover, wants us to use these questions to get to him, to know him, to connect with him, is extremely important. So those of you who had been to our summer teleconferences, earlier teleconferences, may remember this vertical, horizontal distinction that we made, harfi and ismi. So that is extremely important when we're asking these questions. Are we asking them from a harfi perspective, meaning with the understanding that everything has a meaning, and we are here to connect with eternal, with our creator and his beautiful eternal qualities, al-asma al-husna, Are we asking in that attitude, or are we asking in a flat, horizontal, so-called horizontal style, where we feel that we are in this finite, vicious circle of life, and nothing has really depth or meaning or deeper connection? So it depends which perspective we're coming from as we ask these questions.
And Isra, the other thing, it's a part of learning process, like you said, very basic. The problem arises when people don't ask the question. I have a problem, when people have no question, they just sit passively. So it's related to the amount of, the amount you use your brain, I take it in that, at that level, that you're using your brain or not, or those people who don't ask questions.
Sister Esma, I think that more than using the brain, before using the brain, as you had mentioned earlier, it's a matter of intention, and therefore of mindlessness, of being in a state of awareness or in a state of ghafla. Of course, that's also related to intention. Once we make the intention to be aware and not run away from the questions that want to be born through us, and we surrender and let them come through, not necessarily in words, but be aware of them. That's what matters. Because when I'm aware of them, even if I don't articulate them, then I become receptive to the answer. When I see it, I will recognize it. When it's given, I will know it was given. And so the using the brain part comes after. When I'm already
in a class, sometimes
ready and prepared.
I'm saying in a class, some people don't ask questions ever, and some people are the ones who are always asking questions. So I'm saying, I'm just trying to figure out why there is discrepancy, why some people are.
In a classroom, we can't tell, because it can be some people are shy, they are afraid. It does not mean that they don't have questions. What matters here with existential questions is it could be that the one who is asking questions is less aware of the genuine questions coming from inside, those existential questions, than the one who is quiet. So just because someone is quiet does not mean necessarily they don't have the question.
No, I'm just saying
they are not aware of.
Right.
Yeah. So let's come back to the Quranic passage and look at the primary question that the Quran invites us to, because otherwise we may be very smart and maybe asking a lot of good questions in a particular subject, but the bigger questions of life and existence we may be completely missing. So that's the key problem that we want to really acknowledge, inshallah. So if you have your Quran with you, or you can search online, Surah 56, verses 57, 72. I'll read an English rendering of these verses. It is we who have created you. Why then you do not accept the truth? Have you ever considered that seed which you emit? Is it you who created it, or are we the source of its creation? We have indeed decreed that death shall be ever present among you. And there is nothing to prevent us from changing the nature of your existence and bringing you into being anew in a manner unknown to you. And since you are indeed aware of the miracle of your coming into being in the first instance, why then do you not bethink yourself? Have you ever considered the seed which you cast upon the soil? Is it you who cause it to grow, Or are we the cause of its growth? Were it our will, we could indeed turn it into chaff, and you would be left to wonder. Verily, we are ruined, nay, but we have been deprived of our livelihood. Have you ever considered the water you drink? Is it you who cause it to come down from the clouds, or are we the cause of its coming down? It comes down sweet, but with our will, we could make it burningly salty and bitter. Why then do you not give thanks? This passage was a translation of Surah 56, verses 57 to 72. It's just beautiful. I mean, the whole passage is about is in the form of questioning, and these are the questions that we, out of unawareness, we don't even ask normally. We just say, well, this is how things happen and this is how things are, and we just move on. And the Quran brings us back again and again to this basic, fundamental, primary questioning, that this, don't just live through life, pause and see, how is this happening? Where is this abundance coming from? Where is this order coming from? The things don't have to be the way they are. If they are happening consistently, if life and abundance is coming through unexpected places, then really human being has to pause and ask these questions: where is this coming from? And by encouraging us to ask these questions, the Quran is really opening up us to the vertical dimension, that these things are not just flat, they are there for themselves, but they are signs of something beyond, someone beyond, that this whole creation is pointing beyond themselves. And this is a breakthrough, really, that we wouldn't be able to relate to the world in this way were it not Quran's guidance. So Quran is inviting us to ask questions in a way that brings us closer to the truth of the world we live in. And that's exciting. It's not just the mental, intellectual knowledge. That's exciting because then if there is a deeper reality, then we can be in touch with it, and we can see our reality within that context, that we are meaningful, we are all connected to eternal. We are finite, limited, but connected to eternal. We are just tiny nothing, but we are at the same time guests of this eternal creator. So it completely changes, the breakthrough, the way we see ourselves and the world we live in. There are many passages like this that we discussed earlier in our studies and teleconferences. And another shorter example is from Surah 81, verse 26. It's a beautiful, short, profound question that the Quran asks. فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ? So where are you going? It's in the middle of an early Meccan surah that really calls us to reflect about our lives and really self-reflect about what are we doing in this world? Where are we going? So the Quran then provides hints and clues, guidance for asking meaningful questions that do justice to this life, which would be otherwise just a mystery to us. This life would be a mystery. And again and again, it encourages us to use our reason and our experience to test these out. So these are not clues that are just to be repeated dogmatically. They're clues to go and try it out. They are like keys to the world that we can try out. I ask these questions using our reason and using our experience in the world.
Maybe this last point is very important. This is something dogmatic that you just repeat. The Quran says this and this, we just repeat it without actually going and experiencing it. And as Alia always reminds us, witnessing it. Condition only, a witness. There is no, and that Muhammad is his witness. Have we witnessed what is being taught to us here? We understand the significance of the witnessing. We have to remember, for me, it is not God wanting me to acknowledge him for the sake of acknowledging him. That's what my illusion or my perception. When I view myself, I perceive myself as completely separate from my Rabb. These questions, this guidance is for my own benefit. God does not need our ibadah. It says, Wallahu ghaniyun. That we are the ones who need the guidance. We are the one who need to know that we have a Rabb, we have a sustainer, we have a host who is taking care of us, took care of us, is taking care of us, will take care of us. That the compassion and the rahmah and the gifts and the generosity and all the things we are attached to and all the things that we love, all what that we long for are accessible here and now and forever. When we become aware of our connection to our Rabb, when we become aware of being abd. So being abd is something to be celebrated. Ubudiyya is the expression of that gratitude, celebrating the ni'mah, the blessings, the fact that things are not as we thought. They are not transient and impermanent. No, the fact that everything comes and dies and new things comes and die itself is a sign, an ayah, that the source is infinite. The source is endless and permanent, and it's giving us again and again. And that's why here it's asking us, who is doing it? So it's inviting us to see that there is a will, a choice, someone behind the veil of this, the apparent creation that is taking care of everything. This is a big, great relief for the ruh. It's food. It's like an answer to those existential questions. This, I become aware of this, and I appreciate this guidance as rizq, as food and sustenance, or to the extent I am aware of my existential questions, of those questions that in the beginning, when they are not clear, they are like few of you said, discomfort, not knowing what's going on, things are unclear, even when apparently everything is okay and all right, something is still missing. Questions being asked through us. The more when I see this, then I recognize that these are the answers. This is guidance, and these become ayat, signs, taking me to that realm where the ruh, the heart, finds tranquility and peace in the remembrance of its Rabb. So just wanted to remind ourselves that this is for our own benefit, these questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sister Yamina. It's immensely helpful to remember that this is really not... yes?
Isra, can I mention another favorite verse of mine in Surah Nur? Can I read the translation? Same questioning. In the Quran, can I...
yes, if it is a brief passage, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's 52, 35, starts with that. All questions. It says, Sorry, it starts with 34. Let me start with 34.
What is the surah number?
Surah number is 52.
Okay.
Which is the Tur. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, let them then produce a recital like unto it if they seek the truth. Now 35, were they created of nothing, or were they themselves the creators? Or did they create the heavens and the earth? Nay, they have no firm belief. Or are the treasures of the Lord with them? Or are they managers of affairs? And or have they a ladder by which they can climb up to heaven and listen to its secrets? Or has he only daughters and ye have sons? And goes on and on. And or is it that thou dost ask for a reward so that they are burdened with the load of debt? Or that unseen in it their hands and they write it down? This is Yusuf Ali's translation. Or they goes on and on. Or they intend a plot against thee, but those who defy Allah are themselves involved in a plot. Or have they a God other than Allah? Exalted is Allah far above these things they associate with him.
That's also another passage with
Exactly.
questions, yes, from verse 30. This is Surah 52 again, verse 30 onwards till 43. It's constantly asking questions, really probing the hearer, the audience. Do you know there are two types of questions I see here. One is like, do you have really a key to understand the reality? Like how? Like, were you part of the world being made, being created? Do you have access to unseen? And really pressing us to say, like, how can you know the reality, the truth of this world, if you have no access to that all-encompassing perspective?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so I think either you rethink your resource, like what is it that you have trouble with this revelation? Either do you have a better source? Do you really think that you made yourself, or you have a connection with this all-encompassing knowledge, that somehow you have the answers, or you have the key questions, you know what questions to ask? Or if not, or other types of questions is like, is it possible that what's happening in the world is just result of some randomness, some other so-called deities going on? Meaning, like, do you really think that this order is happening by itself, or by any other creature in the system is making this? Again, pressing us to see the transcendental dimension of the world, that this world is not just this flat, it's here and it just happens by itself, or it just somehow is, this is how things are. No, the way things are happening is a sign, is a message, disclosing, revealing somebody beyond them. And we only get to decipher that revealing when we are given the keys to understand that language, by asking these questions, the right questions. The Quran is giving us those cues to ask those right questions.
And only when we discover the unseen, the transcendent, there is hope for us. Otherwise, we're doomed. Otherwise, it means there is nothing beyond. There is only what we see. That will be, for the ruh, it's like a prison. Like it's almost like no air for the body, no meaning, no purpose, no future. For the ruh would be like you can't breathe. There is no meaning. Everything is useless and purposeless and meaningless. There will be no reason to, and we'll have no energy to carry on through the next day. That's why it's like almost like not pushing us, but like inviting us, but insisting, because it's for our benefit. And when we don't get the taste of it until get into it, we get the full. Remember when you read Quran, it is guidance and healing and rahmah. And then we actually start experiencing and confirming once we witness the truth, then we say Sadaqallahu al-Azim. We actually confirm, yes, this is rahmah, this is mercy, this is healing, this is beautiful, this is guidance, alhamdulillah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it doesn't only make sense, the Quranic guidance, but also it is a healing. It is what we really badly need. It fulfills us, it heals us, it gives meaning and purpose and relief. Interestingly, the people who respond to the Quran, and this is a timeless people, it's not just 1400 years ago, we have those people inside us, actually within ourselves. They kept coming back to the Prophet saying, like, we never heard this before, you know. So one verse, just as an example, Surah 5, verse 104, it says, when they are told, come onto that which God has bestowed from on high and onto the Prophet, they answer, enough for us that which we found our forefathers believing in and doing. Why? Even though their forefathers knew nothing, were devoid of all guidance. So that can be one reason. Oh, this is so unusual. This is not what I'm used to, and this isn't what we learned from our forefathers, from our ancestors. And the Quran says, but what if they were wrong? And then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, if they're wrong, I'm continuing your own tradition. If I'm open to that kind of new perspective. But if I'm, yeah.
Not taking for granted, questioning even your own tradition and your forefathers' way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because if they are wrong, it's a big mistake to continue that. If they're right, of course, stick to them. But if they're wrong, just because that's the tradition.
But then, if they are right, I will not continue
their tradition for the sake of tradition. That's true.
But because it's right.
It's mine. You know, I choose it. I affirm it consciously. That's a very good point. Now,
can I make a quick point? Actually, you know, Tariq Ramadan, I was listening to him. He's very critical. He encourages all of us to, you know, for critical thinking. And he the best thing he said was, question the question. That means, you know, it shows the critical mind also, that you are thinking in those terms, that contemplation, tadabbur and all that is associated with questioning, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. 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 And maybe that we can, you know, connect that to this Quran's question, like, you know, what kind of questions you were asking. You know, there are kinds of questions that the people kept putting to the Quran, and the Quran always flips them over and says the question, like the question of, you know, how can the dead bodies be resurrected? That was kind of incomprehensible to the first audience of the Quran, and to us too. I mean, it's a timeless question that, oh, how can this happen? Everything has decayed and disintegrated. How is it gonna be put back together? This question, the Quran asks us to question that question and say, like, really, like, go back and think about how you were made in the first place in your mother's womb. Do you think the one who makes that happen? Do you think the one who gives you life from that fluid, he can't give you new life in a way that you don't know? So it really encourages us to question the question, and it again brings us back to that fundamental thing. It's not about what, you know, the number of questions or the quantity of the questions. The question is the quality of the question. What are my assumptions when I'm asking these questions? Yes, Sister Yamina.
Yeah, the assumptions, that was because when we are asking the Quran, like, what about Why are you so surprised that you will be resurrected after death? Why don't you look at your creation, your first creation, or your creation right now? It's not only teaching us a new way of looking at things, it's also inviting us to look at our false logic, because our reasoning is, we think that we understood how people are created in the first place. Actually, we know nothing and we understand nothing. Just because we see it happening again and again and again, because we take it for granted. That's called ghafla. That's mindlessness. That's not being aware that we don't know, that we don't know. And so it's saying, are you sure that you know? You don't actually know, because look at the first creation. Actually, I don't know the first creation either. And then it invites me, it wakes me up from my ghafla, from my mindlessness, from my deep sleep and taking things for granted. And then when I start questioning that and I wake up and I realize, yes, I don't know. Just because it's happening every day doesn't mean that I know how it's happening. Then it says, it invites me to look at it in a new way, as a sign to an all-encompassing purpose and power and knowledge and creative power and knowledge and will and choice, and inviting me to see beyond the sign. So teaching me that everything is a sign is, as said a few times, and it's very important, is something that we could never, ever imagine if we were not guided, taught that through the Quran, through revelation, through the scriptures. And that's why we need the guidance, because otherwise we'll be stuck in our darkness and not even realizing. That's the worst thing, is not even realizing it. So it's a rahma within rahma, nur within nur, nurun ala nur.
Light.
Not only us making us realize that we're in the darkness, but also showing us how to step out into the light.
Okay.
So light upon light.
Light upon light.
I wanted to add also, came to my mind, there is another mercy in whoever created us, hid in his wisdom, that when we look at the cycle of life, we start, okay, man, we are not in ghafla, we question teenage years, we are not too stiff yet, but after a while we become more in ghafla and forgetfulness. Generalizing, I'm not saying detailed people, but generally. Then after that, people are given little ones. When little ones are around, if you have an intention to change, and inside of you have that openness, the little one's questions doesn't make you smile. You don't say that, oh, those are funny questions, don't ask these. They question about life and what's going on around, the mysteries around you. But if you are already in ghafla all the time, you say, oh, kids ask very funny questions. So it just came to my mind.
So you're encouraging us to, even to take kids as an opportunity, actually, their questions as an opportunity to come back to this basic questioning.
Allah's mercy, I think. Allah created the kids like that. So when you're like in 20s or whatever your age, you see the kids. I mean, if you have kids, or you can look at the other young people around you, and then you can say that, oh, even the little kids ask about the rain coming from the clouds. It's not coming from the clouds. Somebody is sending me water because I cannot live without water. So if you are open to that, even the kids can remind you. Allah is reminding you, even with the little ones. I just wanted to say Allah's mercy.
Thank you. Yeah. And throughout life, actually, we constantly get signs. I mean, recently, I was thinking about age 40. There is as you get older as well, 40, 50, whatever, 60, there are also these milestones. Life starts speaking to you in a different way as well. Allah is sending different signs through everything in life stages. And basically, we need this openness to ask the questions. And one note about the prophet figures throughout the Quran: all the prophets are actually people who invite their people to ask questions, and they are the ones like Sayyidina Abraham, who had the courage to say, you know what my people are doing doesn't seem to make sense. He may not know the answer yet, he hasn't become a prophet yet, but what prepares him is to be able to say, listen, like this idolizing the things like ourselves, or like the things that we carve, we idolize them, it's not making sense. But he may not even know necessarily from the Quranic passages. It looks like Sayyidina Ibrahim has not become a prophet yet, but he's asking questions. And then at some point, in Surah 37, there's a bigger narrative, but I'm going to highlight verse 99. When he has contention with his people about idol worship, at some point he feels he has to leave them and make hijrah, move away. And he says on verse 99 of Surah 37, he says, I'm going to my sustainer, he will surely guide me. And that hope, that willingness to question our ghafla, unaware state. And we really do ridiculous stuff when we are in that ghafla. We assume the world to be in a particular way. We accuse the world even. We accuse the one who made us implicitly. We really act on very ridiculous assumptions when we are in that ghafla state. So what is so important about the prophets are that they have that willingness to say, wait a second, this is not fitting together, it's not making sense. And it's not just intellectually it's not making sense, but also it's not making sense with my fitra, like it doesn't feel satisfactory for me. And that becomes the key, and they become the message bearers in turn. They like a baby, they don't necessarily know why they are crying for. Yes.
So it's
your voice is breaking,
maybe
yeah.
more than openness. Maybe we can say that they are ulul albab. They are in touch with themselves. They are aware of their needs and in touch with their needs. That's the only way we can connect to our Rabb, through our needs, being aware of our needs. If I'm not aware of the needs, I won't be aware of the blessing, how the need is being taken care of. I won't be able to be aware of the rububiyyah. So they are ulul albab. They are true to oneself. This is and it's in a sense also it's integrity. We can call it being authentic, having integrity, because sometimes we do feel it deep down, but because we don't have the intention to be authentic, because we have fears, because we have other different agendas. We want to please some people, we want to maybe reach some position and other things, then we are not focused on, or we do not intend, we don't make the intention to be true to ourselves. And so that inner guidance that comes, it's healing it. I'm not following the guidance. I just remembered someone said, if your way seems clear, then you probably are following someone else's path. Because if you're following your path, then you should be always aware and looking for, waiting for listening to the guidance. But if you think that everything is clear, I planned my life and my career and everything, you are not being authentic. That's why when the mushrikun, before getting into the fire, they say, but we were not mushrikun, we were not committing shirk. And of course, if they were because they were not doing it intentionally, because when you are doing something intentionally, you are aware of it. And most people do not intentionally choose evil, but by default, by mindlessness. But it's the same. When I am not intending to be authentic, I am inauthentic. And just because I have not stopped and declared my choice doesn't mean that I'm not making a choice by default. So I think the Prophet here, and Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he questions his community, he questions their beliefs and their practices because they don't feel right to him. It's because he is in touch with himself. He is an ulul albab. He's authentic. And he stands for that authenticity. He has integrity.
Dr.
Yeah.
Yamina.
Yes.
Does it mean before like taking an action, what I'm intending is just like a horizontal connection? I don't have a vertical connection. Is it? Can you clarify?
If it is horizontal, then again, that's my intention. It means my intention is that much.
I'm not aware about the vertical connection, and so to me, the intention looks very legitimate.
If it is a genuine intention because of not knowing, but if Ibrahim alayhi salam, I think Isra was going there. Maybe we stopped her. Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was asking his questions, they were correct questions. They made sense, but they were not leading him anywhere because they were all horizontal questions. He was asking for his Rabb within the created realm, if you remember. But because he was genuinely, that's all he could come up with, but he was persisting in seeking an answer. And the question that he could not articulate was coming from inside, a need for a Rabb, a need for something different than what his people were doing. That need was answered. And he said, okay, what to do? إِنِّي ذَاهِبٌ إِلَى رَبِّي سَيَهْدِينِ. I'm going to my Rabb, whoever he is, he doesn't know yet who he is, he will surely guide me. Then he gets the guidance because he realizes his limitedness. So he's intent the best he could do within his knowledge and awareness. The intention was to genuinely get to know his Rabb. He didn't know how to do it. He was asking all horizontal questions, but he still ended up finding his Rabb. So if we don't have to worry about it to find the answers. That's not our responsibility. How is Rububiyyah going to answer, to manifest itself in answer to my Ubudiyyah? My part is only being sincere in my Ubudiyyah, acknowledging my needs and how would you say, Sorry, I was cut off.
Yeah, could you just we just missed the last part.
The last part was that if we just mind our part, which is asking the questions from inside with the intention to get the answer, and it doesn't mean that I know how to get the answer, what the answer is, or how to get it, and that's okay, because as long as I am getting clearer, as Ibrahim alayhi salam, as he was getting clearer that his Rabb couldn't be whatever he saw around him, and he got even clearer that he was limited and didn't know the answer and couldn't find the way to the answer. That surrender, that awareness was his the question that attracted the answer, attracted the compassion. And the guidance.
Just wanted to make a point, Yamina. You read Surah Yusuf. When you were giving the tafsir, I heard the own ones about this verse number 7. لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي يُوسُفَ وَإِخْوَتِهِ آيَاتٌ لِلسَّائِلِينَ. So I think Sailing, you said, would be truth seekers, versus the Quran does encourage people to ask, if you have that truth seeking. But the kuffar, their intention was something else. They would ask, about to the Prophet ﷺ to bring punishment soon, and all those things was totally negative. So there is a big contrast in the Quran, throughout the Quran about. But basically, Quran encourages, and it's all Q&A in Quran most of the places. The other point is this, that the Sahaba Ikram was so smart, mashallah, and because of their questioning and, the right questions that we have this religion, the most beautiful religion, because of their, very smart and, questions. And we also even learn from the, negative questions, but that's very, very important. And it has come 129 times. Sa'ila, Sa'ala. This Sa'ilin is only 3 times, once in the Surah.
This Sa'ilin, Ayatul Sa'ilin, is very, very significant. Thank you for reminding us of that, Sister Esma, because that story will be the most beautiful story, and there are so many signs in the story of Yusuf and his brothers for those who are asked questions, but in seeking the truth, because we could be asking questions for other reasons. So Isra told us that the quality of the question is important, how we ask a question, and what are our hints and guidance, and are we aware of the baggage and the pre-assumptions that guide and determine and shape our questions? Are we aware of that? And that means what comes behind it is, what is hidden behind it is the intention. That's what Esma just reminded us, is being a seeker means having the intention to seek the answer, the true answer, the answer that is other than, for instance, in the case of Ibrahim alayhi salam, other than what his people found, because he felt that what his people were following didn't make sense to him. It did not satisfy him and his heart. And so he was questioning it. Even if he didn't know how to question it, his intention to seek the truth was the key to the truth being revealed to him.
Yamina,
That's
Yamina, one of the things that always amazes me when we read Surah Al-Kahf, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers a question but does not answer the question. So he says people are asking how many are there in the Kahf. So some say they were 4 and their dog was the 5. Some say they were 5 and dog was 6. And Allah does not answer like the question. So, and then he answers another question, which is how many days did they spend there exactly? So as if part of the question is to answer a question that has a meaning that, that is of significance, because how many they were is not significant in this case, but how long shows a miracle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to realize. So it's interesting, like part of the question, I think, is also the question that has a significant meaning. It's not just for jadal, not just for argument, not just to to show that I'm correct or you're correct.
well, yeah, boost our egos.
Another question that used to really puzzle me growing up was this question of when is the day that you're talking about. They asked the Prophet, when is this day? Okay, so there is the final day, there's a judgment. When is this day? Tell us when give us the date. And the Quran never answers that question. It says God knows. And I would be like, I wish, but why is the question not answered? And they keep asking the question, and only later it dawned on me that this is not a real question, because let's say there was a date, November 15, 2050. What will you do? Like, why are because they're asking it not with the intention to be open to truth. They're asking to just jadal, to just go back and forth. Because it won't help them. Like, if they know the answer, this date, what will they do? They will wait till that date to see if it's happening. But then the whole point is to be able to see the signs before the veils are lifted completely. You use your heart and intellect.
The question shows that they missed the point. So if you answer it,
and it's not, and they're not actually asking in order to learn, to open themselves up. Yes, they're asking you to just contend with the Prophet. Oh, you are saying a day, a judgment day. Give us the date. When is it going to happen? Okay, even if he told you when it's going to happen, what could you do? You will have to wait. Well, we will wait and see. Wait and see. If that's your response, the whole point of revelation is to wake us up now to the reality we live in, and to free us from the prison of transience and from meaninglessness now. If you want to wait till that date, then that's not even a question. You're just contending with the Prophet. So there are many questions in the Quran, and some of them are answered and some of them are questioned. Like, what kind of a question is this? And the difference between the two is not at all arbitrary difference. There is a genuine difference in one of the questions that are answered in the Quran are those questions that would lead us to genuine answers, and those questions that are asked after we really question our assumptions. So that's another important point we want to make today, is that as we are guided in asking the right questions and as we are receiving the answers to them, it doesn't stop the process of questioning. It's like, okay, we got all the cues from the Quran. We realize everything is a sign in the world. Nothing is meaningless. Nothing is just vicious circle of transience. Everything can connect us to this eternal creator. Everything is a sign. Khalas, we learned everything. Okay, close the books, or not books. You don't have questions? No. Questions constantly keep coming up. It's a way of living. Just that because we have, inshallah, basis from the Quran, then the questions are asked in the right way. Then the questions are asked in a fruitful way that will get us deeper into science. Because I can know everything is a sign, but I may be in a particular situation where I'm not able to see what is the sign aspect, but I can ask the right questions of that situation. Ya Rab, there must be wisdom here What is the wisdom here? There must be rahmah here. How do I know there must be rahmah here, mercy here? How do I know there must be wisdom here? Because I have done my primary questioning, primary self-reflection, and I have seen numerous signs that this world is run by wisdom, by profound wisdom and profound mercy. Then, when there's a situation where it looks otherwise, I have the courage to ask question. It's not pious to suppress the question. It's actually part of our iman to ask that question when something doesn't seem to fit, when something is bothering us. But now, inshallah, as we are trained with the Quran, then we know how to formulate that question in a fruitful way, rather than just allowing it to dissipate into victim mentality or just complaint.
Or losing hope.
Or losing hope, yes. So we had prepared two examples of that questioning, one from Prophet Noah, one from Prophet Abraham. Just that I'm looking at the clock and subhanAllah, the time flies, so it's almost 10 o'clock. I will pick the shorter example, even though the Noah example was exciting. I mean, is exciting. I don't know if we have time for it. Right, Sister Yamina? I'm just going to go ahead with Abraham. It's one verse from the Quran. If you look at Surah number 2, verse 260. And I will read the original first quickly and then translation. استعيذ بالله. وإذا قال إبراهيم رب أرني كيف تحيي الموتى قال أولم تؤمن قال بلى ولكن ليطمئن قلبي قال فخذ 4 من الطير فصرهن إليك ثم اجعل على كل جبل منهن جزءا ثم ادعوهن يأتينك سعيا واعلم أن الله عزيز حكيم. The English rendering is as follows. And lo, Abraham said, O my sustainer, show me how you give life unto dead. He said, do you not believe? Abraham said, yes, I do, but let me see it so that my heart may be set fully at rest. He said, God said, take then 4 birds and teach them to obey you, then place them separately on every hill, then call them, they will come flying onto you, and know that God is Almighty, wise. What is interesting here is Abraham is asking a question about seeing another sign of how God resurrects. And he's asking this question after having asked the fundamental existential questions, after having received answers for them, after really paid attention to the world around him and reflected. So he isn't just asking out of the blue this question. He has really reflected. We have lots of passages in the Quran that he reflects on nature, on the world around him, and gets guidance and is willing to really question unaware state of his people and then come to this breakthrough of revelation. Oh. Now, and then he's saying, show me how you give life to death. And it's beautiful. God is asking him, don't you believe? And this is a beautiful example of what is called God coming down to our level of comprehension when he's speaking to us. So the Quran, even by telling this story, it is giving a message to us. Of course, God knows when he asks Ibrahim alayhi salam, don't you believe? God knows better than Ibrahim alayhi salam what is in his heart. But in that's beautiful way that our Creator is educating Ibrahim alayhi salam, and through him educating us, he's asking a question to bring you to the forth, as it were. Do you not believe? I take this question as, have you not seen other signs before? Have you not come to a conclusion of belief, meaning remember all the other evidences which brought you to belief. And he says, yes, but my heart needs more. I want to be fully at rest. لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. And then Allah shows him a sign.
What is that thing?
Sister Yamina, I couldn't hear you.
It means he's aware what he's asking and for what reason.
Yeah.
It's not because he does not believe, but because he wants to reach a greater level of clarity, of certainty, of satisfaction, of knowing clearly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the intention here is not challenging or contending, but genuine.
And it's not asking in a ghafla state where I have missed all the signs in my life and then I'm asking God, give me a sign. But I've been given all these signs, so it's not that kind of a ghafla questioning. And that's why he gets an answer, because the same question, how will Allah resurrect the dead? This kind of question, seemingly the same question, has been asked in the Quran by other people, according to the Quran. And the Quran doesn't say, oh, great question. It says, like, go back and think about, did you forget how you were created? Why don't you look at the rain and how life comes to the earth after it's dead and so on? So it sends the person back to really rethink his assumptions, because the person who's asking about resurrection in those contexts is a person who takes it for granted that things come into life in this world. Fruits, vegetables, plants, animals, me, myself, I just came out of my mom's belly. That's all normal. That's all explained. I just can't understand life after death. And the Quran is like, rethink your assumptions. Do you really explain all this life around you? Or you just got used to and you put a name? Like Sayyidina Yusuf, again, back to Joseph's story, when he's talking to his to the inmates in the prison, he says, these things that you talk about other than God are just names you made up. You and your forefathers, and you think you're explaining. You're not explaining anything. So the Quran, for those contexts where the person is asking in an unaware state, not having questioned his misperception of the world, then the Quran sends the person, as it were, back to questioning those misperceptions, and really asks us to look at the world around us more carefully. But here, Ibrahim alayhi salam is not asking in that state, so he does get an answer. So that shows us that it isn't the content of the question that's the problem, but the way we're asking the question, the attitude, and also, are we asking this question having asked the primary questions that Quran invites us, or are we just in ghafla? We completely skip those questions. Now we're worried about figuring out something with all the wrong presumptions in our head. So that's yes.
The intention.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
The context is when we talked in the beginning, before Surah, at the beginning of Surah Yusuf alayhi salam. A word, the context of a word is not meaning, does not carry meaning on its own. We need to know the context of the word, which is the intention. Who is saying it? Who is saying it? For what reason? And to whom? For what reason is the intention? What do you want to know this for? So all the context here, it seems like a similar question, or maybe even the same question, but because of the context it's coming from, what is what we said at the beginning, how is it shaped, how is it born, that makes a huge difference in its implications, and therefore the meaning it's carrying, really. And that's why it's only a sign. The words themselves are only a sign. We have to look at the sign together with what comes together with it.
Yes, Dr. Yamina, one thing we missed in Quran, I don't know which exactly verse, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala discourages asking that kind of a question. When somebody asked about this question, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, if you want to know the answer, you wouldn't be happy about it. So it was discouraged. I don't know, it was in connection of charity or something like that. And also with the Prophet ﷺ, a person came and kept asking about how many Hajj we can do. So he did not respond, right? Because that was discouraged. The other thing I just wanted to mention in Surah Yusuf, and Dr. Alia mentioned about that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't respond, that means it's not important. But sometimes when he doesn't respond, it is important too. You can get a positive message, like in Surah Yusuf, when the brothers said that we are going to put Yusuf alayhi salam, throw him into far-off land, and that so that the attention of our father turns exclusively towards us, and after that we may again become righteous people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not make a comment on that. That doesn't mean that we should adopt that style, but then he wanted to keep the doors of mercy and forgiveness open, and he did forgive them in the end, So he did not respond to that question, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he went on with some other point, other ayah. So sometimes when he doesn't respond, that endorses, I think. It's not always that if he doesn't respond, it's negative. Sometimes it's positive too. Just wanted to make.
I heard Dr. Alia telling us that the fact that it is mentioned in the Quran is important, and it is teaching us something. And one of the things it's teaching us is that, for instance, in the case of the people of the cave, is that asking the number of the people there would be missing the point and not seeing the sign and the miracle of what was going on and the implications and meaning, significance of that miracle. So actually it is a thing. So I understood that it is important because we learned through that ayah, it is an ayah teaching us that be careful about what you are asking and what are you seeking when you are asking those questions. It reminded me of I think it was a hadith, when someone comes and asks the Prophet ﷺ a question. And then the Prophet ﷺ looks at him and he asks him, if you know the answer, if you learn the answer to this question, would it change anything in your life? He says no. And he said, if you never learn the answer to this question, will you miss anything in your life? And he said no. And he looked at everyone and said, do not ask such questions. Because they're not truly questions, or they are questions that don't lead anywhere, or gossip questions like the number. But Dr. Alia said in that context, because in another context, maybe the number would be important. But in that context, the number was not the ayah. So it does not.
What I was mentioning, she mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not respond to it because it was not important. But in this case of Yusuf alayhi salam, he did respond, and that was important. I was just contrasting it.
Yeah, I think, the context of each is important, because in what Dr. Alia was quoting, it even says you're just throwing, at the dark, meaning like, why are you just talking about speculating, dark speculation?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so
it might have a limited capacity, and it, we have to know the most important things, and that's what Quran teaches us.
Yes. So, so I guess we have to pause here, even though I'm really excited about the other example as well, Prophet Noah. But I guess
maybe if we can keep it, you can start the next teleconference with it.
Maybe, yeah. I think we should stop here, because there's another example of another prophet asking a question that really troubles him, and he gets an answer. to that question.
3 minutes, you can sorry, 10.
Let's keep the suspense. I'm glad you're also excited, because I'm excited. I almost want to keep going, but we should pause here, inshallah. It's past 10 o'clock. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for our monthly teleconference, which happens on the first Thursday of each month. And inshallah, we'll meet again in December. So we will leave you with these two reminders that intention is very important as we ask questions, because it shapes our perception of the world. And again, we have two basic choices. Either we go with horizontal approach and we ask questions with illusion that I am independent of my creator, and then things are happening just like that. If I am in that mindset, the questions that I ask will not really lead me to a fulfilling and healing and reasonable worldview. And the Harfi perception, that if that guides our questions, that really completely changes the picture, because it gives us an awareness of being abd, being a creature of one Rabb, one sustainer, and who is merciful, who is compassionate. And coming back to the baby example, we may not know how our need is going to met, how our question will be answered. But like a baby coming out of the womb and just screaming and asking for food, like that baby, we can consciously surrender and trust. Then with this perception and genuine questions will uncover the messages carried by the world around us, that everything is a sign, and we will continue to be puzzled, we'll continue to have questions and dilemmas. But if we are coming from a grounded perspective of the Quran, we are aware and we're willing to ask the real questions, then all the other questions will fall into place and will be asked in a way that inshallah will lead us to surprisingly pleasant and abundant answers, inshallah. And again, we may not be able to articulate our questions, but if our intention is to seek help, that help will surely come. And let us be sure of it, inshallah, given all the wisdom we see around us. So thank you again for joining us, and inshallah see you next week for our weekly Quran study at the same time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and inshallah join us for December teleconference as well. Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.